we shall be talking about battery and charging infrastructure financing. And I think in the course of the day, we have been told demand is there. We've also been told financing is there. In the last panel, we were told that the end users are ready. A few people talked about having range anxiety. But the people on this panel will tell us what's missing. Why are we not seeing that investment, or is there in charging? What are the challenges that we are seeing in that area, and what should be done, and what are they doing? But without any lots of fanfare, I would like to start with a lovely lady at the extreme. Introduce yourself, tell us what you're doing, and then we'll do all the introductions, and then we can start our panel. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. My name is Brigid Gachoki, and I'm the current CEO at EVChaja. I'm standing in for Abigail.
Hi, everybody. My name is Vivian Oyugi. I'm currently the head of operations at Ampersand. At Ampersand, we deal with two-wheelers, the motorcycles.
Hi, everybody. As Moses said, I hope you don't fall asleep after lunch. I'm Joe, CEO of Arkride, a battery swapping business, which we'll talk about.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jesse Forrester. I'm the founder and CEO of Mazi Mobility. At Mazi, we build and we believe in interoperable charging stations. So we do that in two-wheelers and three-wheelers. Nice to be here.
Okay. We'll start with you, Brigid. EVChaja. You're setting up charging infrastructure. What is the dream? What's the dream of EVChaja? What is it you guys see? Because for a long time we are told that the vehicles are not there, hence there's no charger, there's no reason to set up the charger. I think earlier we were speaking to somebody from one of the OMCs, and they're talking about two. You guys have gone ahead, and where do you have charging, and why have you set it up? What is it you've seen?
Okay, maybe I'll start with why the company was founded to begin with. So our founder, Yadi, which I think a lot of people here have had interactions with him, he started the company because he bought an electric car and then just got stuck somewhere because the car ran out of charge, obviously, right? And for EVChaja, that then became the mission of the company. So a lot of the times when you see how we deploy chargers, we tend to deploy regardless of whether there's demand. Sometimes we deploy in places and there's no demand for a year. But then slowly people start knowing, okay, yes, there's a charger here. It then gives them confidence to then travel places like Nyanyuki. We didn't have utilization for such a long time. And now it's performing really well. Same in Kisumu, same in Nakuru, and a lot of other places outside of Nairobi. So for us, our mission is to facilitate, because we understand there's a chicken and egg problem, and for us, we want to put that problem aside and just deploy and hope that we're facilitating the industry.
So how are you funding this deployment? We keep hearing there's no money, but you guys, you literally have said you built a company so that the founder could charge his car wherever he went.
Yes. We are fully self-funded, right? We are obviously in the process of acquiring funds to do mass deployment, but currently we are fully self-funded. So every station that you see, we've funded ourselves, including, KPLC payments and things like that. And I think if you talk to anyone that's doing charging infrastructure at the moment, the biggest issue is the initial capex. Having to pay KPLC just to install, let's say, one 60 kilowatt DC charger, you'd have to pay KPLC around 2 million if the transformer obviously, doesn't have the capacity, which then increases your capex, and then you start thinking twice about whether or not you're going to deploy. Or it then increases the time frame in which you want to deploy. And then you find clients then getting really frustrated as to why you're not deploying as fast as we want you to deploy. Because we also understand that then puts a barrier in terms of people buying cars and putting them on the road.
So I'll come back to you because two things you've said there.
Allow me to interrupt. I'd like you to move to that seat because you're out of the camera range.
Okay.
And we need to pick this. We can't afford to miss
Okay,
it.
I'll come back to you because you said two things there, that you are in the process of acquiring funding. So there is some funding somewhere, and you already must have some money because you're deploying. Jessie, she has brought up the concept of the chicken and the egg. Is infrastructure and what you're doing, and tell us a bit more what you're doing. Is it the chicken or is it the egg?
So what Moses is alluding to is just before this panel, he asked me this question: what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Age-old question. And what I answered is, if you have 10 chickens, you can maybe have 10,000 eggs. But if you have 10 eggs, you can only have 10 chickens. And in this case, infrastructure.
Hakunaga twins kwa chickens.
Labda zako Moses. But I have never seen, no, at least what we've seen in the industry is, if you deploy infrastructure, as she said, you might have a period of underutilization, but the investment into mobility is no longer a case of if this is going to work. The question now is just how big can it get? I always say this. And by the provision of enough charging spots and charging infrastructure, that encourages investment to a scale that we have not yet seen. Okay. So I think that at present, we are dealing with what I call V1 e-mobility. V2 e-mobility is what we are working on. And what I mean by that is a fragmentation of the value chain. Right now, we see fully vertically integrated companies because that's just what was needed. You couldn't build an e-mobility company if you didn't do the bikes, if you didn't do the charging, if you didn't do the batteries and the after sales. But that's not competitive anymore. And so what we decided to do is we partner up with OEMs that come into the market that have incredible balance sheets to self-finance bikes and batteries. And we act as a third-party infrastructure network. We're basically a petrol station for EVs, simply put. And because of our ability to act as a turnkey solution for a lot of these companies, we are seeing incredible scale starting to come into mobility. So changing the way we view the pie, and when we look at more mature industries, this is very, very, very typical, right? So that's one of the things we believe at Mazi, and that's why we say we are interoperable charging infrastructure company. When the people believe my battery, my infrastructure, or maybe my batteries, any bike, we say any batteries, our charging stations. Thank you, Moses.
I think we'll come to that because there's always been this, do we democratize battery swapping? Do we go home charging? We'll come to that. But maybe I will let, Joe and Vivian. I don't know who should go first. Yeah? Okay, Joe says Vivian, because I should have put somebody in between you guys. You're tough competitors in this market. And so, Vivian, tell us about Ampersand. What's the philosophy? What are you doing with infrastructure, and how is it going, and how are you funding it?
Okay, so history, or rather background, Ampersand started in Kigali, Rwanda. That was way back in 2016, obviously with a prototype, and then we commercialized by putting the first bike on the road. So testing if the battery model would work, but also testing if the product itself ideally would work. History also, we believe in putting more money into the customer's pocket. So if you look at the business model, we currently running the battery swap network. Currently in Nairobi, we got in Nairobi in 2022. There has been growth from then to now, and visibly, I believe, even on the roads, you can actually see the two-wheelers out there. What that growth takes in terms of the infrastructure readiness, we've also, we have charging stations across Nairobi. I wouldn't say out of Nairobi, for now, but just slightly out of Nairobi. So you go all the way to Machakos, you go all the way to Thika. So that also shows that, there is growth and demand. So as you create demand and you put more, in this case, motorcycles on the road, then you also see demand. And before you know it, from Thika, you'll get much more demand in Murang'a. So you keep on building the infrastructure as you also get demand of, consumers getting interest in buying the motorcycle. Yeah.
Okay, now come to my good friend Joe. I was deep in Kino the other day eating pork. And I saw a charging station somewhere that I'm not even sure who goes there other than me to eat pork. What have you deployed? How are you deploying? Is it what are we doing? Is it a land grab? Are we all trying to go out there and deploy as much as possible and then pull the bikes because I have the infrastructure? Or what's driving that growth?
Yeah, I think for us, it's very much around putting the infrastructure first and then believing it will come, that kind of leap of faith. But I think what Jesse says is right. And it's a really interesting panel because, Ampersand is really the leader in this space originally. And it's sort of inspired a lot of other business models. Ampersand, what they were doing in Rwanda in 2016 has led to other business models which are continuously evolving. And I think what Jesse's saying is that we're in version 1 or 2 of e-mobility now, and the next wave is coming. And we are going to see this consolidation. We are going to see more interoperability. We are going to see partnerships being the norm. But that's the future. At the moment for ArcRide, it's about how do we put as many infrastructure charging stations in as many places as possible to give people the confidence that e-mobility is here to stay. That's a bit scary because you have to pay for all the capex up front. But that's very much our model going forward. We're going to go on an expansion to other countries, and the success here, that's the way that it's going to work in other countries. We're going to go to City X and start with a minimum of sort of 100, 150 charging stations. And we really believe, based on what we've seen here, that that's what's needed. That leapfrog moment only comes when people have the confidence of the infrastructure. It's what's needed in the four-wheel space. In some of the other panels, they were saying, how are we going to get this growth, this sort of organic growth of we have X thousand vehicles and Y 100 chargers? It doesn't need to be like that. There needs to be this big momentum of putting the infrastructure in, and then the vehicles will come up. And I think something we really need to talk about is the transformer issue, because there's nowhere else in the world where e-mobility companies have to pay for transformers. And then when you pay for it, it goes back onto the balance sheet of KPLC. It's just insane. Sorry to be so blunt about it, but it's probably the biggest barrier to large-scale charging of four-wheelers, buses, and even larger infrastructure for two-wheelers, is that the damaging cost of paying for a transformer needs to be sorted out.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead and clap, please, by all means. This is not Trump speaking to generals. You're allowed to clap. So you've brought in the issue of cost. You're saying the infrastructure is quite expensive. And you're all saying you're in version 1 of what infrastructure looks like. But on the other hand, when we are talking about what does success in this version 1 look like to you? Because you've deployed. So if it's a swapping station, what does success look like? Is it the number of swaps? Is it the number of users per charger in Nyanyuki? What does success look like? Because if we can define what success looks like, then maybe I'll turn to the people on this side who say they have the money and say, why aren't you banking on that success? You can start, Joe.
Yeah, I think for me, it's really believing in that ecosystem effect. And we're now seeing that. And I think if you look at our journey, if I'm really honest about it, we didn't know who the customer was going to be when we built the infrastructure. We put sort of 120 charging stations in Nairobi for a few hundred bikes. And everyone said, Joe, you're completely crazy. I said, yes, you're right, but this is coming. And I think that's why we were so successful with Green Wheels taking on our bike, because they could see that the infrastructure was there. And then we expanded that quickly to over 200 sites. And then people got confidence using the Uber electric bike and sort of growing. And we really created that positive ecosystem effect. And now we're seeing that at a scale of sort of, we started to see it at around 2,000 bikes. You start to see that you turn from loss-making to actually a positive ecosystem effect. So it's not that big a market. We're talking about a few thousand bikes out of a couple of 100,000 bikes in Nairobi to actually be commercially viable. And that's probably, I don't know about cars and other things, but the actual ecosystems are not that big to be commercially viable. It's just that we've been in this startup phase, and getting 2,000 bikes, the infrastructure 2,000 bikes is, $5 to $10 million minimum investment. So that's the phase we've been breaking through. But now you're getting models that are showing it's commercially viable. And that's where it gets really exciting about how do you scale this and replicate it in as many places as possible, as quickly as possible. And I'm a firm believer that if anyone thinks e-mobility started now, just wait until the wave comes. It's coming.
What is it like for you setting up for four-wheelers and for,
I think I'll first answer your previous question. For us, it's about success comes with utilization and uptime. One of our biggest metrics or KPIs is uptime. Our target is to have a 95% uptime across all our chargers. It's really, really important because, as Joe said, having infrastructure out there is one thing, but having infrastructure that actually works is a different thing. So for us, having really good uptime means putting that confidence in anyone who owns an EV, knowing that when they go to our stations, they're operational, because we have, and I'm sure you've had calls about this, where there are a few chargers that have been deployed, but they're actually not functional. And people are asking, okay,
I think you're struggling, so let me come.
Yeah. So it's why isn't this charger working? And it's been there, but it's actually never been switched on. And you wonder, why deploy if you're not actually going to have anybody using it? Yeah. So that's the first thing. And then what was your second question?
I was trying to understand what's the plan? What's going ahead? What does success look like? How then do you raise capital to make it, to deploy everywhere?
So we do mixed, it's mixed capital, right? So you have grants, you have investors, and for us it's mixed at the moment. Okay. We're also looking into green financing as well.
So for those in the room, if you drive an EV, and I think Jennifer is not here, when she lent me hers, the best thing to do is just go to a mall, look for the EVChaja sign, and you get a parking in the best spot. And it's quite, you don't have to walk very far. You just park at the EVChaja and charge your battery. Now, version 2.0, you're saying of charging. All my relatives who have learned tell me, you're in the EV industry. Niko na shaba. Can I set up EV charging? Is there a possibility where we will see independent chargers or depots, both for either motorcycles, for two-wheelers, four-wheelers, just set up the way the OMCs are setting up petrol stations everywhere? There are more petrol stations than wines and spirits these days. Can we see that coming up in our industry?
Yeah, I think, one of the things about setting up infrastructure is there is a physical setup and then there is a management that comes with it. What I can speak to is on the two-wheeler side. I think when you have your physical cabinets, etc., and we've seen some companies explore franchise models, for example, I think retaining the right to maintain your software and to maintain O&M, so operations and management, is what's going to be critical. But owning that particular infrastructure, giving a share of that pie, and doing the site civil works, I think that can definitely be outsourced, right? But when I think about V2.0 in e-mobility on our side, when I look at a station and you ask what is success for us, we have a very mixed station. So we've got batteries that sit from 2 kilowatt hours all the way to 4.3 kilowatt hours. And so that's an interesting portfolio of batteries. And I look at what is the utilization rate, obviously, but then what does that look like on a power battery basis? Because my station that maybe 14 slots, one empty, can charge for 4.3, maybe 50 bikes, right? Assuming 4 cycles a day. If I have 2.0 or 2.1 kilowatt hours, maybe I can do 100 bikes. So then that becomes a bit of a different metric when it comes to success on our network, as well as uptime. So I do think that, holding on so tightly to the value chain, that's not going to work anymore, right? And so, especially when players come in with just immense amounts of capital, there's been quite a bit of investment in e-mobility over the last 4 years. And, Joe talked about the kind of money you need to get to scale. In our business model, for Mazi specifically, if we're to have 6,000 motorcycles and someone else is fully vertically integrated, we need 10x less capital and we'll be 20 or 30% more profitable. yes, we'll make less revenue, but it's a more profitable business. And so when you think about it from that perspective, and you've got players that can fit these different parts, then it becomes very catalytic. And I think that's what investors are really looking for. And then you get this different asset class of investor that's maybe a bigger type of investor, private equity, and move beyond this VC early stage funding. So I think this is where the market is going to go into. We've seen that with these guys from India who got this Helios $100 million investment. And I think that kind of capital is what is needed to really drive growth. And that's what's going to end up being raised. Yeah.
Is there, I mean, if I've got money, can I then say, I'm willing to invest in the infrastructure, but let's create a charging supermarket. So Ampersand's there, Spiro are there, Mazi is there, and why not? Then we share the capital cost. Is that an opportunity that we should be looking at?
I think it is an opportunity that generally the industry should be looking at. I think with any business that's here, any reason to reduce your capex, especially when it comes to infrastructure, no one is going to say no to, right? So I really think it is a viable option for people to look at.
Okay.
Because I think partnerships work better than, anything
yes,
else.
and then we can go to our friend from the county and request Green Park and all of you set up there. Yeah, go ahead.
I think that's the power of EMAK, right? In terms of seeing how many people are in the room now, and we actually need to give a real shout out to people like Hesmond and Vivian, people that, and you, Moses, other people that put blood, sweat and tears when there was like 6 people at a meeting saying, should we come together? And now look how far it's come. So everyone that's been part of that journey, congratulations. But I think that particularly on the infrastructure, it's how you break this cycle. If we can have maybe draw Nairobi into some hexagons, right? And with every 10 kilometers is a central charging park that anyone that's part of EMAK can be part of that central charging thing where there's a high-level transformer put in place. You can charge buses, charge cars. When you're charging buses, motorbikes are not going to even matter because of how much energy you guys need. But if we can create these sort of energy charging hubs, then you can actually break down that, where am I going to charge? You sort of get over that barrier. And then people can fill in the gaps, like commercially. So there is a real opportunity for the government, grant sector and things like that to sort of create this impetus, which then other people can build commercial models off the back of.
Yeah. Let me hear from you, Vivian.
No, I agree with Joe from a point of... One thing, though, that even from a body like EMAK, bringing us all together from the industry players, we also need to... I kind of feel like there's still rigidity from different EV players. And for us to get to a level where we can be able to share a hub charging sort of arrangement, then we need to open up as well, coming from different industry players, that this is something we need to do, but also at the same time, it will help us to scale quickly the operations, because the struggles we see at Ampersand within two-wheeler aspects, probably the same struggle that Joe sees as well. So it's something that we need to be open to, so that we can collectively drive to that initiative, but also push the scaling of operations and uptake as fast as possible. So I agree.
Well, so evidently you all agree that there is reason to cooperate. Now, maybe I'll ask from, I don't know if the financiers are still here or the people who know more about money. What is the barrier? What is the barrier you're seeing towards investing in infrastructure? And as you're thinking about that, what would you then expect of the industry to achieve so that you then can unlock financing? So I don't know, anyone who would like to try and chime in on that?
Maybe I can chime in on that a bit. I think one of the things, like Joe was saying earlier, it's when you deploy to create demand from our perspective, right? So that initial deployment requires a lot of capex, and most financiers, because it tends to then be a longer term investment, and most financiers, they're looking at 5 years when we are asking them for longer. which then it becomes, or it's a high risk, and they then shelve you, right?
Okay.
So I think that's one of the things, is that it tends to be a longer term investment period that we are asking them for.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think earlier we were told in Rwanda you get you also get concessions on land. My brother from Busia, isn't that what you said? What does looking for land to be able to set up charging infrastructure in Nairobi look like? Who would like to go? You're all shaking your heads.
Wow. Yeah, I think first of all, we need to set up sort of supports within land infrastructure acquirement, because at the moment, as it sits, you don't even want to think through that, because it will take longer from a time conception point of view, to even getting the processes done, to you getting leasing agreements, to you signing off and starting to build infrastructure and putting the infrastructure in place. But also there's a question of, once you've set up and put the infrastructure in place, for how long can you lease for? At some point, the rate, at what point will the rates go up? So there's a lot of uncertainty, and there's no proper clarity in terms of what needs to be done. And I think in order for us to look into that, we'll need to define what really is ideal. Yeah.
I think maybe the other thing in terms of like what we're looking for is accessibility is really important. Yeah. Because when you look at how people generally drive, when the car is running low, they want to get in somewhere really quick. And most of the time it's just off the road, right? Now the land that is just on the side of the road, we all know it's really prime location. And most of those people are more inclined to work with developers, to do gas stations or strip malls and things like that, yeah? So outside of the e-mobility space, a lot of landowners do not have the confidence in e-mobility, right? And as she's saying, you'll maybe get a 3-5 year lease, and most of the time they're looking for a development partner to come in and do something, right? And then what happens after that 5 years? You haven't gotten your return on investment from doing the infrastructure and then actually putting in the charging equipment. What do you do after that 5 years when you're told you need to get out? Yeah, you're then starting from scratch.
But in the room, very busy on his phone, is somebody with a lot of land. Yeah, they are called Shell or Vivo. Yeah, a lot of land everywhere in Nairobi, everywhere in the country. Jeff, these guys are saying, none of them have said they don't have money. It was about financing, but what have they said? They don't have land. Yeah. You have a lot of land. What does success to you look like that we can build infrastructure, and this infrastructure supermarket with all these companies, Piro, ARC, everybody in the land that you already have?
But just quickly, I think it still goes back to the issue of transformers. Yes, we can have a partnership with Shell and say we'll deploy.
But we can share the cost of the transformer.
Unless we say we're sharing it with Shell. Because we actually had a situation where we went to deploy at a location, unspecified. And, we had this agreement and everything with the landowner and everything. And then it came to now the transformer didn't have the capacity, which became a whole different conversation, because they were just not willing to go in together for the transformer, because they were fine operating without us.
I hear you, but what I'm trying to come up with is I'm trying to say that, yes, if the infrastructure is expensive and a transformer costs a few million, and we are coming together and we are saying, if we are together, this is a bankable project. We can have three-wheelers, four-wheelers, even buses in the same location, and we have somebody with a land bank. What does success look like to you?
I think before the discussion on land, for me, when I speak about EV, it's a technology. And in the growth of technology adoption, as the speakers have said, there is a time that is coming where there will be some consolidation, which is exactly what is happening. And the consolidation will help address some of the problems that you're having. And that means if we've seen every player has their own setup in terms of infrastructure and then on the fleet of vehicles. So there needs to be a consolidation in that aspect where there will be bigger infrastructure providers and the same way bigger fleets. So that can help in one way. Then in terms of land, here we are more than the wines and spirits. It's quite an interesting way to look at it. But for us...
Just drive around Kilileshu and Kilimani. There's a petrol station coming up every day. Yeah.
I think it's the confidence for the brand. Yours truly, everyone here. So thank you. The other way to look at it is traditionally, a station serves every client, whether it's a Toyota, BMW, a Nissan, and the like. And that model has allowed us to lower the unit costs of setting up a station, and then we are able to serve more consumers in that station. So the same would apply even to EV. If there is a form of consolidation where one transformer can be served by an interoperable system, and then the users are many, so that Basigo, Luxair, BYD, and everyone, they use the same setup. That's how basically you lower the unit cost of setting up. So for me, that's how I would see the next phase of growth for the industry around consolidation with the aim of reducing the unit cost of a station. Yeah.
The other person that has a lot of land is building markets in every sub-county or constituency. But as we build these markets, are we thinking about the future of mobility? Are we putting in the infrastructure or at least making provision for it? I will throw that one at you, my good friend from the county. Can I get a mic? Because those are the things that you're being told that demand is there. These guys don't have, none of them have said they don't have the money to set up, but land is an issue and you have it.
Thank you. I know you're putting me on the spot. But as a county and the way we are set up, we have a sector that is responsible for markets, and that is trade and industry and cooperatives. So I'm in the same sector, but as I said in the morning, we have had very, very limited engagement with you people. And markets, to me, they represent a very good option for us to facilitate that infrastructure. We are doing 20 markets alone in 5 years. Between 2022 up to 2027. And that does not mean it's going to stop there. We still have more land. I think it will be a good conversation that we start having, because one of the things that was not there before, can't remember the name, but we've had to accommodate the markets that we are constructing right now. They've got baby care centers where breastfeeding mothers can actually leave their babies there. They can work, something like that. So it's something that surely we can consider. And we have a very good, vibrant team. If you want to engage us, just come over, we talk. We are ready and more than willing to host a charging system there, because, again, they are delivery vehicles. When the vehicles are not delivering, we have very good space that other vehicles can come in and charge their vehicles. So I think we are ready.
Okay, so I put the challenge to all of you who are players in the industry, that there is an opportunity to be able to set up infrastructure in existing county or government facilities that are coming up. But then now I'll come back to you guys. One of the things that I have you very easily, you're all doing this. It would be interesting to understand, is there a gap? Is there a funding gap? As long as the industry keeps growing, we are good? Joe, you have the mic.
I think stock record, but the transformer thing, KPLC guys have left, but really...
No, she's here.
Sorry.
She's here.
I'm going to keep hammering on at this. But, if you're looking at like a $20,000 investment, say for a charging infrastructure that costs a few $1,000s, it just doesn't make sense. And that disproportionate cost of the transformer versus the infrastructure, I think, is the single biggest barrier to growth commercially, whether it's charging cars or buses or motorbikes. It's the biggest barrier to the industry as a whole. I think that listening to you, sir, I'm sorry I didn't catch your name, apologies, George. And I'm going to say something like against my own interests, but if I was you, George, I'd be saying, look, EMAK, you get all of the players to come together and tell us what we need for a cross-industry charging center. Don't speak to the individual companies. I can come and pitch my business to you and say, we want to partner with you. I'll tell you all the stories in the world, say why we're interoperable. The reality is that's why EMAK exists, is to come and create, look, this is what we need as like a place like to leapfrog the industry. And we put this industry in your 20 markets. And then suddenly there's a lot more infrastructure and the whole ecosystem goes to the next level. So I think be wary of inviting people like me to come and pitch to you and telling you we're the best version of ourselves, because we will all try and do that. And now the industry is fighting. And that's been the case. But I think there's this consolidation around key sites that needs to happen to address the transformer issue. And then there needs to be some work on standardization. And I think what Jesse's saying about how do you move to having centralized charging sites, it doesn't matter which battery you bring, I think is a great idea. I think you're going to see some consolidation in the 2- and 3-wheel space, probably around 2 or 3 different battery forms. I don't think you're going to continue to see 10 or 12 different battery forms. I think you're going to see some quite strong consolidation around that. So it's a really interesting moment. But I think the biggest barrier is transformers and government changing the taxes every year, which is why we're genuinely looking to invest outside of Kenya, because it's a much more attractive investment environment than Kenya at the moment. So it's interesting.
Okay. Anyone else who wants to chime in on that? And then I'm going to invite questions from the audience, because I said I'll keep it short and I want to hear what you guys would like to know about infrastructure.
I would have thought private sector. They always work together. They're not like government. As we don't compete, but we are very good at working in silos. However, I believe through EMAK, you will come and see us, and we can be able to work on a solution. One thing you should know and understand is that the national government and the county governments, not just in Nairobi, they have a joint program. We are doing markets. County government is doing us some certain markets, which they're handing over to the county governments. And county governments, they're doing their own markets, which then they're distributing to Nairobians to do business. It will be very interesting, because if you come up with a strategy and a system of onboarding the charging system, it means we are going to take it over even from the national government perspective. And from that, they're going even also to pick it up and see it's an issue that we need to start addressing. In terms of policy and pushing our advocacy, I think it will be a plus for you. And not just only markets, we have other areas. Some of your stakeholders have come to see me regarding the Green Park area, which is very ideal. But I think the story just ended there. They came, they saw me, they disappeared, they never came back. The story about Green Park is that the idea that brought about that infrastructure has since been overtaken by events. I don't think it's going to host any kind of matatus from upcountry or transporters. They have rejected. The only other thing we can do is to strategically, because it costs a lot of money, to convert it to something that is viable. And I think what you're talking about is very viable, and we can quickly think through that idea and see how we can implement it together. Thank you.
Well, I think if we can get our 1 MVA transformer at Green Park, I can mobilize a lot of these guys to come and set up charging. I am talking to the utility in the house. You've heard them not talked about the tariff. They just want a shared transformer so that they can share that cost and bring the cost of setting up infrastructure lower. Patrice, I hope we are not scaring you as you're starting this financing journey for DRC. What do you see as a financier looking at what is happening here? How are you seeing what's going to happen in the DRC?
Thank you, Moses. I wanted to be very close in my corner. So my name is Patrice. I'm in charge of asset financing in equity in DRC. So I'm here today to see how long the journey has been done by Kenya. And this morning, I think someone says that 8 years ago, there was a dream. And I can tell you that you have made a long journey for the moment, and you are still having that dream. So I have a lot of key learnings since this morning, and I think I will be glad to share my comment at the end of the day. Thank you.
Yes, I see some questions and maybe some comments. I'll walk around. I'll just let you know, Equity Bank has invited us sometime next month as members of EMAK to a forum where we can work with them and also meet their teams from DRC. Because of the great work you're doing here, they want to invite you to get new passports and we cross over to the newest country in East Africa. So go, and then I'll go to the corner there. Go ahead.
Thank you. The issue of the transformer has been on the table, and it is just good that I respond so that we place the issue where it belongs. Someone has challenged all of us in this room that partnership works very, very well. And for us in Kenya Power, we even accept partnership in terms of those applications. That if you come in as a group, we even have a prefix for that application for group application so that you share, depending on the model that you want, you can share that cost so that it becomes easy for the investors as you come. The second thing that we have, and probably it's important to mention this, that we've bent backwards as a utility so that we on board, we don't want us to be the roadblock, quote unquote, in this space. We bent backwards to bring together or to make it easy for the investors to come on board during inception. So today, if you made an application, you are not required to do 100% payment. We have a program called deferred payment where you're only required to pay 60% of the total cost, and then you're connected. The other 40% probably can be staggered in the next 3-4 years when you're in operation. So I think that is a good thing to start, a 60% off as you start, and then the other one can be staggered in the other 4 years. So I think
put on your bill, or how do you pay for it? Is it the staggered payment? Is it added to the bill, or how is it?
Yes, it's cumulated depending on if it's one person who is paying, you pay it on your bill. But if you have different players, it will be divided amongst those players, and you know in advance how much you need to pay. So every month as you pay your bill, you pay that portion towards the 40%. So I think that's something probably the investors will want to think about.
Can I ask, sorry, is that an idea or is that already happening?
Yeah.
That is already happening as we speak today. If you go to any Kenya Power office, you ask for a deferred payment, 60%, and you onboard it. Yeah, that is something that is happening. It's not a dream.
Is that option already available to the e-mobility?
Allow me to moderate.
Which office? I think Moses, because probably people are not aware. I think this is the conversation that we had in the morning. People probably are not aware of that product, but it's available. Today, if you go, and we've given so many people that deferred payment model, if you go, you pay 60% and you onboard it. So it's actually there. Thank you.
Okay, I think that's there's a lot of questions on that one. I just want to hold it for a bit, otherwise I'm going to lose this panel. And I want to take a question at the back there, and I'm coming back to that. I'm not throwing it away.
Thank you very much. My name is Tom. I'm an EV enthusiast and a carbon specialist. But just two very quick anecdotes. On the chicken and egg, I drove to Nanyuki the other day and took 50 kilowatt hours out of your free charger. And the reason I was able to do that is you were there. So thank you very much. One satisfied customer. And the other, I was recently in Italy with my family, and we hired an electric vehicle, and we were blown away. You had to return it to the airport with 70% full battery. And we pulled into a service station, and there were 4 300 kilowatt chargers in a row. So first of all, there are cars in Europe that can take 300 kilowatts. And secondly, there were 4 in a row, which means there must have been a transformer that was at least 1.5 megawatts somewhere in the vicinity. And I'm sure that the service station didn't pay for its installation.
And I bet it was a Shell.
And it was a Shell. So that's the dream that we can all dream about, everybody. We'll get there.
I think there was a question around there. Yes, please, by all means.
Hello, everyone. I am Thatcher. I am from Mazi. I'm the head of ops at Mazi, and often I've interacted with utilities, I've interacted with petrol stations. And the question really is to petrol stations, what would make it attractive for stations to host swapping stations, especially given that the market is really small? And the panel can contribute to this, because one of the reasons I'm asking this is that, when we've reached out to petrol stations, whether the Shells or,
I will give this question to Sharon, because he's just texted me, he's buying me a gin and tonic.
Awesome. Add us to that bill, please. And again, Sharon, just to close the question, the reason I'm asking this is that often at Mazi, when we've reached out to stations to host our swapping stations, there's this thing of you're too small for us to consider. And then there's also the thing of we are not exactly sure how EV is scaling. So what would make it attractive for you, Sharon, to have a Mazi swapping station in your premises?
Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sharon Gitao from Total Energies. So what would make it attractive? I already have 3 partners on our sites. So we have Akride, we have Ampersand, and we have Rome. And normally it's actually, and for all, apart from Akride, for Ampersand and Rome, actually Ampersand started out in Total. That was the first conversation that they had. And it's an element of understanding your business model. So basically it's, I think when someone said it in the morning, like if you understand your business well, then you're able to jump onto it. In terms of what makes it attractive, unfortunately, yes, we have many petrol stations, but having fuel and electricity on the same site also for us poses as a challenge. So you find that because of things we call like safety distances, at times we're not able to have as many as we'd want, and our space cannot actually accommodate sometimes what it is that you need, and that's the thing that we usually face. But generally, we don't have an issue with having people coming and charging on our stations, but we are a bit slow in, in taking it in, because we are also not experts in that area. But we are willing to support, and we have actually been supporting, yes. So like even this year, I think we have added about 6 or 7 in our station. So it's something that we're doing, but we're not as aggressive at it, because we're also trying to learn what is happening in mobility so that we can be able to jump on it. Yes. I don't know if I've answered your question.
Thank you. There's a gentleman who said he's from Panther Mobility. You guys are starting. You said you're a startup. Are you seeing any barriers? I'm calling out. Yes, give him the mic. Are you seeing any barriers? Because you're starting out as an OEM to start assembling. What would you like to see infrastructure look like?
Thanks so much for that question. I was really hoping I'd get an opportunity to speak again to that. So there's a gentleman who talked about it here just a minute ago, and I alluded to it early in my comments in the morning. And I said, what we need as an industry is to work on de-risking the industry as a whole, as a group. And I can't remember exactly who was talking about it. What we need is if Ampersand has a battery swap station, I should be able to make use of that. We should basically figure out how can we be able to have that collaboration and that shared infrastructure, so that, like the great man from Vivo said, I don't have to go building a battery swap station in every little town and have to invest in all that infrastructure alone as a company. We should be able to do it collectively, so that a bike should be able to walk into any battery swap station and swap their battery. All we need to do is to figure out how that can be done, so that everybody has the part that they're playing from the perspective of them being a company, and of course how they benefit from that. That's my comment. Thanks.
I can assure you there are no elections for EMAK pretty soon, but I will say I have found you guys deferred payments. I have found you guys land from 3 different places. And we've also said all the problems, we said that the money is available. I found you a new market in DRC. So I have, without there being any elections, maybe Ninoma. As I finish, I would like you guys to give your closing remarks, give us nuggets of wisdom, and I would like to say thank you for being a wonderful panel. I will start this side and we will finish with you.
Maybe I start off with a question to KPLC.
I am hoping that I can defer that question and so that KPLC can sponsor another event. And since they are potential members, we are trying to get them in, then they can we can have a one-on-one. I can tell you that's not going.
No, I'll make a comment.
Okay, go ahead.
Maybe I think the other thing with KPLC is that outside of Nairobi, not a lot of your colleagues understand, I think, what you're trying to do with e-mobility, because we've had a lot of challenges when we are setting up outside of Nairobi. Yeah, so maybe what I would say is that as KPLC, you should have a cohesive push for e-mobility and letting us know about all of those things in every single county, not just in Nairobi, because the challenges we had in Mombasa was just... Yeah, let's just leave it there. My other thing is that obviously we're very thankful to EMAK and all the members of EMAK, because without the members and the committee, we wouldn't be here. Yeah, so I think it's just for us to be able to collaborate as an industry better, as Joe was saying, so that we can better drive the industry, because at the end in the long run, it's going to be better for all of us. I think that would be the thing that I would say.
Thanks, Moses. I think one of the things, I've been in e-mobility in this industry for the last, 5, 6, 7 years. And I think the biggest issue is we talk about collaboration, but we really don't mean it. So we've had, such as alluded to that.
Sounds familiar.
We have to chase some members here. We have to really prod. And I think it's really lip service to say, we're going to do it, and we don't do it. So I think for me, the thing I would love to see is really just put the money where the mouth is. Let's have action. And if you're not going to do it, just say, hey, I'm not going to work with you. Then we move on, right? I think that's the easiest way, so that when we think about collaborating as a collective, we don't waste time. Because we've had this conversation for 4 years. No one has collaborated. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think picking up from that, I'm going to say something different to what I was going to say. But there's a couple of options on the table, right? Here, maybe around coming up with an EMAK working group to go to the markets and say, look, this is how we can do centralized charging as a leapfrog moment for EV around the markets and around Green Park. I, for one, am willing to commit ArcRide resources time to try and make that happen, and genuinely would like to see that as a pan-industry charging center. I think if we can get that model working at 2 real locations, then there's an argument to have, say, look, we want to scale this across. And that would be actually a moment where people choose to come together or not. And it may only be 4 or 5 companies that actually end up backing that, but it demonstrates the convening power of EMAK, which is one of the key things of why it comes together, as well as the learning. And thank you for the learning from KPLC. I think that's really powerful. Let's try and make that happen. So I think that's really the thing for me today. Let's try and make those two things happen, and that will be a really good outcome of this panel.
Okay, so I'll just add on top of what everybody else has said. Where we are at today, it's an idea that cannot be stopped. And if you know an idea cannot be stopped, then we need to collectively push aggressively forward. And as a result of that, then, there is the essence of collaboration, which I agree we talk about, but we actually don't action. So there has to be an intention collectively coming from individual companies, EMAK being our body representative, to push us collectively so that we can together make the aggressions forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much for my panel. I think what we have agreed is if we can cooperate, if we can come together, we can actually make infrastructure bankable and shared. With those very many remarks, a hand clap for my panel.